Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Thinking Marketing Podcast, where I interview cutting-edge marketers on trends, best practices, ideas, and all other marketing-related and growth-related topics that are of interest right now. Today, I'm joined by Manson Chen. I discovered Manson through his newsletter called Parabolica, where he writes about generative AI and its application for paid social creatives. Manson is freelancing as a paid social creative strategist with an extra edge of being an expert in generative AI. Before freelancing, he's worked in the growth department of many high-scale companies, most recently as creative strategy lead at Cash App, which is an app that is now predicted to break 50 million users. So you can imagine that he understands paid social scale. In this episode, we're discussing generative AI tools, what big wins Manson has seen using generative AI in his ads, and also what skills you need as a marketer to make it in the future of generative AI creatives. We're also discussing how we can look at modular creatives as a sandwich, which is a very nice and easy to understand description of how you can break up your ads to get more understanding of what you're actually putting into them. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into the world of generative AI in ads with Manson Chen.
All of a sudden, the AI video results were really good. I'm seeing like 40% lower CPA using an AI generated visual hook. Last week, I saw a 49% hook rate with one of the AI generated visuals. And I'm, consistently over 40%, which in my opinion is pretty good.
These AI generated visual hooks that you have seen really strong performance with, how do they look? Is there something special that the AI is doing in the way that they look? Or is it that you can test a lot of different ones fast? Or what's the secret sauce there?
Yeah, it's both. So with AI generated visual hooks, you get really strong abstract looking creatives. They're satisfying to look at and they're really captivating. And they're also very fast to create with AI. I'm able to generate 3-second, a 5-second visual hook in like a minute. In the past, I've generated my own visuals and it takes me, a day to create something like this. And I've worked with teams that are specialized in 3D motion graphics. And every week we would churn out 1 or 2 net new visual concepts that were abstract, and AI is just so much faster.
So when you're talking about these abstract visual hooks, what are you then really talking about? Is it like satisfying videos for which you have like a text overlay? Or is it something product related? Or is it like product agnostic? Or how does that work?
Yeah, they're more product agnostic. The whole idea behind it is that you need to hook the user in the first few seconds with visuals that work. And you see other companies do this like Headway or Noom, where the first few seconds of their ads, they're testing abstract visuals or, dunking a burrito into a sauce. And those are all designed to capture your attention. So once you have that visual hook, you want to lead that into a selling sequence. It could be a testimonial stack where you have people that have used your product or service and review it. So usually the visual hook is product agnostic and they look good and they capture the eye. I also slap on a text hook that leads into the selling sequence. And it could be something like, did you know this? Or 3 reasons why, or I can't believe this actually works. So there's all these direct response best practices that go into the performance creative as well.
So then have you also used the AI generated videos in any other part of the sequence, or is it visual hooks only?
Right now, I think its strength is in the visual hook, and its strength is in augmenting an advertiser's already existing creative library. But there's no reason why it wouldn't work as a visual, as a background as well. And we've seen that work at Calm, and I've seen that work at looking at other people's libraries where you have a visual hook and then you have a sequence of oddly satisfying or nature backgrounds that keep people watching.
So in the following sequences, I mean, often they're like a creator or, product demo, stuff like that. Is the AI tools that you're using today able to generate that kind of content?
It is possible now. And I think last month it was still a little hard to create, but there have been more and more open source technology that is making it easier to do something like that. I want to sort of distinguish between two different forms of text to video. There's one text to video that's pure, where you don't have a video input. So for people that follow, that's Runway's Gen 2 model, where you do a pure text to video prompt. And right now, the temporal consistency is a little weird, where the faces are a little weird and the hands are a little weird, but it's still very, very early days. And then there's Runway's Gen 1 model, where the results are really good, but they use a source video and they apply a style to it. So having the UGC sequence past the visual hook right now is possible. I've reskinned my face with like an Indian woman or a white man or a Hispanic man, and there's a little bit of flickering here and there, but it's possible. You can test this right now, and it's getting easier and easier to test.
In the Parabolica, I saw you made yourself into like a lizard, was it? Like when you were talking about how you can use AI to create mascots for your brand.
Yeah. There's this company called Wonder Dynamics, and for what you want to achieve, you can upload a video of yourself, or you can upload a video of, a creator. And what it does is it uses AI to sort of do a motion capture, and it replaces you or the person with a 3D generated character or an alien, or, and I think it opens up the door for a lot of brands to test into brand mascots or, more virtual looking characters, where historically that's been too expensive to test in bottom funnel marketing, because you need people that are good at 3D and things like that. But it's getting easier to do that with Wonder Dynamics or Stable Diffusion. And, the future is coming. It's really exciting. And I think the people that are willing to take big swings and test, cool ideas and fun ideas, those teams and those companies will stand out.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. So one thing that you have mentioned a little bit now is like the open source versus, I don't know what you call the other kind of tools.
They're like closed source.
So like, what is the difference, and how do you get in to actually start using the open source tools? Because I feel like it's quite a hurdle for a lot of people to go all the way there. And do they need to do it even, or what's the benefits?
Yeah. So great question. There was a recent internal memo by Google where they mentioned that they don't have a competitive moat in regards to their AI. The reason they say that is because open source models are catching up so quickly to all the things that big tech is putting out there. In large language models, there's the winner is GPT-4, but there are so many open source models. And you can say the same thing for computer vision. So Stable Diffusion in particular. The drawback is, like you said, the ease of use. You have to install these GitHub repositories that allow you to use these open source technologies. For me, I would argue that it's best for you to learn these tools, because the open source tech is on par or in some areas better than what the tools like Runway allow you to do. But that's if you really want to be cutting edge, and it's up for the individual marketer or the creative to learn. I personally don't want to get replaced by AI. I think that there's always going to be a human in the middle that needs to work with AI, but it's good for people to learn these tools.
So if you want to be like a cutting edge marketer in the AI era, you should get comfortable using open source tools. And if I want to become that, where would you suggest that I start?
Yeah, I would start with this GitHub repository called Automatic 1111. And what it is it's an open source user interface that makes it easy for people to run Stable Diffusion, which is an open source text to image model. It also allows you to install extensions like Deforum that generates videos, or Temporal Kit that lets you reskin a face, or ControlNet. So with Automatic 1111, you can, test all these things and generate these things too.
If I use these open source models for text to image, for instance, the output will be on par or even better than Midjourney, for instance.
Yeah. So with Stable Diffusion, you have a lot of models that allow you to apply different styles to make the output look like they have particular styles, or they can even train a physical product into Stable Diffusion. So with Midjourney, you're not really able to do these sort of things, but with Stable Diffusion, you can train the AI to do the things that you want it to do. A lot more flexibility. And the envelope is constantly being pushed, and the tech is only getting better.
I recently did a course called like AI for Everyone or something like that, which was a course that wasn't specifically on like generative AI and stuff like that. It was more behind the scene, like what is machine learning, how do these models actually build up, like what is a neural network, etc. Do you think that this kind of knowledge also is good to bring with you when you go into the field of generating creatives, to understand like the engine behind, or can you skip that part?
That's a great question. I think it is important if you want to get really advanced and start building potentially something of your own, like like fine-tuning ChatGPT or fine-tuning Stable Diffusion.
Something that I also wanted to talk to you about is the advertising platforms like Meta that we're using today have been running on AI for a long time. But now with also generative AI coming into the picture, we see more like the Meta AI sandbox. TikTok released a tool where you put in your product category, you write some things about the product, and it generates like ad ideas for you. Do you see a future where we'll see the platforms starting to generate ads for you, with you just having to like prompt it? What do you think?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? From my point of view, they can do all this right now. They have the data. They know what images work. They know what messaging works because they report it out to you.
Yeah.
And they have the capability of putting something like Stable Diffusion into their platform. I mean, last year they had a text to video thing. It's called Make a Video, where you have a text and it generates a video. And I think a few months ago, they had Make a Video 3D, where you write a text and they generate a 3D rendering of a dog, flying through space. So it's both like, it's temporally coherent and it's also in 3D, which is actually ahead of all the open source stuff out there, but they just, Facebook won't release it. The one question is, do they want to screw the rest of the industry over and like eat the entire pie? I don't know.
I also feel like there's something about where it's good for the advertising platforms that people have to put in the work to like compete against each other and like come with new ideas. I don't know if Meta wants to be the platform that you can go to and say like, hey, why isn't my ads working? it's always good if you have some responsibility on your end to like create stuff, etc. Because if everyone just like prompted in their product, then it's like, how do people even compete, and how do Meta decide which ads to show? Now they can say, you have a better ad than this person, that's why you get a lower CPM. But if everyone just prompted in and Meta made all the ads, like the competition is kind of almost gone. Maybe you compete on like landing page and stuff like that, but still.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there's going to be a human in the middle, and maybe in the future, if Facebook puts this in their platform, like, what's the skill set that you need then to be a good marketer? Is it analyzing data? Is it being creative and coming up with new concepts, copywriting? I think all these skills will be important, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in like a year or in 2 years.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that it's going to be really important to not just have like the digital aspect of things, but also make sure that your product is on pair, etc. And that you maybe can create like events that can then be translated into the digital setting to create authenticity and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to experience this now, where there's so much content being generated by ChatGPT, written content, that authenticity will be very important, and podcasts will be very important because you build a relationship with the person. Video content, I think founder-led brands will be important because people like the authenticity, and I think people are starting to sniff out AI-generated content. On LinkedIn, I'm seeing so much AI-generated comments, and they're so obvious. And I think people don't know how poorly that looks for themselves if like a content, like one of the comments is AI generated and people can just sniff it out.
All right. Another question that I have, you posted about like modular creatives. You break up the creatives, you have the hook, you have the visual sequencing, you have different parts of the creatives. Which frameworks are you using when you construct modular creatives?
I think of creatives, and a lot of people think of it this way too. They're like Lego pieces, or you can think of them like us putting together a sandwich. Like, you have a sandwich, you have the bread, you have the hook and the visual hook. You can think of as like the top layer, the bread, and then the bottom is you have the call to action. And so you have the two breads, and then in the middle, you have the meat. So the meat you can think of as your message and how you're conveying the message. So if you have the meat like a pain point, anxiety or sleep or weight loss, you can have all these different ways of conveying that. So you can have testimonials, you can have a problem solution. So with all these different pieces of a performance creative, you can test an individual piece and see whether or not the market likes it. So you can switch out the bread, see how the market likes it, switch out the cheese, see how the market likes it. And with testing all these different modules in your creative, you have to make sure that you're tracking it properly with an ad naming convention that measures all the little pieces you're testing.
Are there any brands that you recently have seen that are being really successful in using generative creatives in their advertising?
Yeah, you can look at Coca-Cola or McDonald's. Recently, I mean, they're huge companies, but Coca-Cola used Stable Diffusion in one of their ads. It was in a museum setting, and the paintings came to life and you like were immersed in the painting. And McDonald's a few months ago for Chinese New Year's, they used something called neural radiance fields, or NERF. And what that allows you to do is, you can shoot a scene and you can film a scene, and then NERFs allow you to do infinite reshoots. So they were doing all this like camera zooming and panning with neural radiance fields. So you can go like top level brand building ads with AI, and then some of the more bottom funnel stuff, performance related. I've seen a lot of companies like Headway and like Keto Diet app use text to image like Midjourney to create portraits and avatars, and using AI generated voices to do voiceovers of their ads. Another idea that I think is really great, and I'm doing this as well, is you can have ChatGPT come up with 5 visual metaphors for a company or 5 visual concepts, and have that output be a prompt for you to just type into Midjourney or Stable Diffusion.
That has been for me like the biggest wins is using like ChatGPT to fill out like a script that I have for a celebrity or UGC creator. But then I always put in like the framework that I want to use, like that it should be a hook, there should be some storytelling, like product USPs and stuff like that. And then it can be super effective actually.
How else are you using AI in your work and your life?
Scripts, that has been a big one. Then I think it's more like the everyday use of generating ideas. Then I've been using 11 Labs for some voiceovers. Midjourney as well. I make some music sometimes. And then for my last 2 of my 3 last releases, the cover image have been generated through AI.
That's cool, man.
One more question that I wanted to ask you is, you write the Parabolica newsletter, which I think is a great resource for anyone who wants to stay updated and get inspiration on how to use AI in creatives and performance marketing and marketing in general. Do you also have some other people or resources that you follow or take inspiration from that you could let people know about?
Yeah. So my biggest source of inspiration is Reddit. There's a subreddit called r/Stable Diffusion. The latest cutting edge text to image or video, AI video stuff is going to be there. And you'll often see stuff on LinkedIn that gets reposted from Reddit. So just go straight to the source and go to Reddit/r/Stable Diffusion and sort by top for the week. And you'll get a good pulse on what's possible with AI video and AI images.
That was it for today's episode. I hope you got inspired to try out some new tools, to pick up some new knowledge in the generative AI space. On my own part, I want to try out more of these open source solutions because that's something that I haven't really explored yet. But I know it takes time, so I'll have to set out some time to do it. And let me know if you do the same, or if you have done it yourself and have some ideas for how to go about learning about it. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow Thinking Marketing Podcast on your preferred podcast platform. Also check out my newsletter at thinkingmarketing.io, and follow me and Manson Chen on LinkedIn, and follow his newsletter Parabolica. There you have it, a lot of knowledge that will help you improve as a marketer or business person in general. Until next time, have a great day.